The first time Kellen saw a human in a collar, he was 6 years old. He didn't understand what the alien meant when it said, obedient mammal. He only knew the woman on her knees had scars on her back and deadness in her eyes. She wasn't a criminal. She wasn't a soldier. She was like his mother. Except this woman wore a leash. That night, Kellen asked his father why the Zadran kept humans. His father didn't look at him, just sipped his drink and whispered, "Because we let them." Years later, that sentence would haunt him, because it was true. The Zadran didn't conquer Earth in war. There was no invasion, no fire in the skies, no tanks rolling down ruined cities. No, they came in peace, with food, medicine, energy tech. They offered salvation, and in return, they asked for work. Just a little at first. Clean the ships. Fix the vents. Raise the young, then it became fetch, obey, kneel. Within 2 generations, humans were classified not as citizens, but as companion intelligences. Sentient enough to learn language, but not enough to rule. Sub-classified, tagged, bought, and sold, and humanity accepted it, most of them, but not Kellen Ward, not after what they did to his brother. A Zadran aristocrat had acquired Aaron during a trade on Vega Prime. He was 12. A good worker, smart, clever. He lasted 9 months. Kellen never got the full report, only the word medical failure stamped cold across the death notice. That's when Kellen made a choice. He stopped surviving and started planning. By 23, he'd earned the Zadran's trust. He was tall, lean, quiet, knew when to keep his eyes low and mouth shut. Got assigned to a tech lord's household, Lord Threx, a sadistic bureaucrat who treated humans like toys. But Threx didn't know what Kellen really was. He didn't know. Kellen had been training in secret, stealing schematics, learning code, mapping escape routes. He didn't know Kellen had already connected with others like him through the underground whispers of the Red Maw. He didn't know Kellen had already killed twice, and he certainly didn't know that Kellen had found a way into the Lord Network, a Judimaki Sin, private Zadran comms node hidden behind 14 layers of encrypted genetic firewalls. Kellen knew. He also knew the schedule of every transport ship that left the capital with new stock. Knew how many guards were assigned to slave pens. Knew when the lights dimmed in Sector 3. He was waiting for one thing. The key. It came in the form of a Zadran noble's son. Spoiled, reckless, drunk off imported Terran wine, boasting about his father's newest acquisition from a forgotten colony called Horizon Theta. They say she used to be a commander or something. Now she cleans boots. Kellen's fingers curled around the serving tray. Commander, from Horizon Theta. That was General Elise Rook, missing for 10 years, one of Earth's last field tacticians before the collapse. If she was alive, she wasn't. Just a victim. She was a weapon, and Kellen had just found the trigger. It took 6 days to locate her. She was buried in the 3rd sublevel of the planetary palace, cleaning out biological waste tubes. When he saw her, he almost didn't believe it. Her hair was hacked short, her face lean, skin dull from vitamin loss. But the eyes were still hers, steel, fire, fury caged. He approached her during a shift switch, pretended to stumble, dropped a micronote onto her cart. She didn't react, but the next day her eyes met his for exactly 1 second. It was enough. She remembered what it meant to fight. That night, the Red Maw received its final code. Phase 1 is active. The commander is in play. They moved fast. Prison blocks started glitching. Drones misfired and short-circuited. Artificial gravity flickered just enough to distract the guards on rotation. While the Zadran scurried to fix their systems, Kellen slipped into the sublevels. Elise was waiting, already holding a guard's plasma baton. No words, just a nod, and a storm. They didn't sneak out. They tore through the exit with stolen weapons and a hacked security drone that screamed non-compliant protocol every 10 seconds. Elise moved like a predator, precise and cold. Kellen just tried to keep up. They made it to Dock 6 before the alarms caught up. Too late. Red Maw operatives hijacked the control tower. Dock 6's blast doors opened, and from the void came a ship no Zadran had seen in 100 years. An Earth build, Vanta-class raider, unregistered, untraceable, and armed to the teeth. Kellen and Elise dived aboard as the sky lit with anti-ship fire. Inside, 4 humans were already at stations. One turned to Kellen, grinning. "Welcome home, sir. Ready to make some noise?" He looked at Elise. She said nothing, just took the co-pilot seat like she'd never left it. The ship roared as it punched into hyperspace, Zadran fighters crashing behind them. Kellen watched the star lines blur, heart pounding. The leash was broken. But the war was just beginning. And this time, humanity wasn't anyone's pet. This is where the breakout becomes a movement. The galaxy isn't ready for a species that's done being silent. We turn whispers into war cries. When Kellen opened the encrypted channel, 3 things happened. First, a silent ping bounced through 22 hidden relay satellites, most disguised as space debris, some buried on moons. Second, across 7 occupied sectors, humans who'd lived entire lifetimes pretending to be obedient paused mid-task. In kitchens, on factory lines, in cages. Their earpieces hissed, and third, Red Maw Protocol Omega activated. It meant one thing: the fight was real. The Vanta-class raider, Wraithcaller, was already deep into the Grey Reach, far from Zadran patrol paths. Its AI, an illegal self-aware hybrid called Vex, projected a shimmering map of human resistance cells across occupied space. "We have 78 cells confirmed, 11 at full combat readiness," Vex reported. "We'll need more," Elise Rook said, arms crossed, voice sharp like it had always been. Kellen nodded. "We'll give them more. We give them a target." That target? Yarnex Station, the largest Zadran human processing hub in the sector. Half slavery, half entertainment complex. Humans were auctioned, paraded, and experimented on there. It was where Aaron had been taken. Kellen never forgot. Neither had the Maw. The plan was simple. Step 1. Infiltrate the outer ring disguised as traitors. Step 2. Kill power to Sector 6's, processing floors. Step 3. Broadcast what the Zadran had done to every corner of the galaxy. Step 4. Burn the place to ash. Reyes, Wraithcaller's infiltration lead, smirked. "Most of our gear is illegal in 15 systems." "We only need it to work in 1, Kellen replied. They went in clean. 2 stolen merchant shuttles. 5 operatives each. Elise disguised herself as cargo, just like they used to ship the high-value pets. Fitting. Inside Yarnex, everything was polished chrome and casual brutality. Zadran elites walked past naked humans on leashes, sipping, color-shifting wine, debating who could reprogram their property faster. Kellen felt bile rise in his throat. He forced it down. Rage is fuel, not fire. Not yet. He and Reyes reached the main server access point. Meanwhile, Elise had already knocked out her guard, stripped him, and was moving through ventilation like she never forgot war. At 03:19 station time, Sector 6 went dark, emergency lights kicked in, and every holoscreen lit up against the Zadran's own firewalls. The image, a child, human, in a cage, crying, then a flash of a medical table, then another, and another. each worse than the last. Then a voice. Not Kellen's. Elise's. We are not your pets. We are your reckoning. Across the galaxy, the message went out. Zadran governors panicked. Trade lines halted, and Yarnek Station began to erupt. Inside the chaos, Kellen, Reyes, and Elise cut through guards like ghosts. Every human they passed, they freed. Not all of them could fight. Some were too weak to stand, but some took weapons and didn't look back. By the time the explosives were planted, over 400 humans were moving through Yarnex, not as prisoners, as liberators. The escape was pure fire. The Vanta-class ship smashed through the hangar bay wall mid-battle, ramming a security ship and unloading smoke drones. As Elise covered evac routes, Reyes led the survivors. Kellen stood at the detonation panel. For Aaron. He pressed the trigger. Yarnek Station bloomed in orange-white flame. Back on Wraithcaller, Elise stood at the main console as the message played again. Galactic channels were scrambling to block it. Too late. It had already been downloaded, ripped, reposted, millions of views, billions by morning. And not just humans. Other species were watching. They'd always assumed humans were docile. Cute. Safe. Now they saw a fire they didn't understand, and some of them liked it. In a deep system far beyond occupied space, a shadowed figure leaned back in a metal throne. Not Zadran. Older, different. Watching the broadcast, it turned to its advisor. The pets bite now? Yes, Primarch, the figure smiled, sharp and slow. Let them bark. Soon we'll see if they hunt. Kellen sat alone near the ship's rear viewport, staring at the stars. Reyes sat beside him, cleaning her sidearm. We're targets now, you know that. Kellen didn't look away. Good, then they'll come. You want them to come? He nodded. I want them to bring everything they have. A pause. So we can take it. Elise walked in, bruised, but standing tall. Phase 2 begins now. She handed him a datapad. Next target. Zadran Breeding Labs. They're cloning loyalty into the next generation. Kellen's face hardened. Then we burn that loyalty out. The galaxy has heard humanity's roar, and now the Zadran are trying to smother the flames. But they forgot the most important lesson in war. You don't cage something that remembers how to bite. The breeding labs weren't on any public registry. They weren't supposed to exist. Even most Zadran didn't know where the next generation of obedient human stock was being designed. But Elise had once interrogated a governor who talked before he died. Now, that location, Ivalex Station, was burned into Kellen's mind like a curse. Ivalex floated in dead space. No suns, no traffic, just darkness. Perfect for secrecy. Perfect for elimination. Wraithcaller came out of folded space 200 clicks from the station, cloaked under Vex's gravimetric distortion field. Inside the war room, Reyes was already loading armor-piercing rounds into her pulse rifle. Intel says they use neural imprinting, make infants obedient before they speak. Kellen's jaw clenched. What about the ones who resist? Silva answered from the terminal, voice tight. Memory wipes, or incineration. Elise didn't. Speak. She just pulled her combat knife from the wall. The team suited up. This mission wasn't liberation. It was exorcism. They boarded Ivalex through a waste vent. Classic, disgusting, and effective. Inside, everything was sterile. White walls. Quiet, like a hospital, until they reached the cribs. Hundreds of them. Perfectly spaced, monitored by floating med drones. And inside, infants, human, monitored, labeled, Subject 4017B, loyalty imprint complete. Subject 480A, Emotional suppression, successful. Subject 418F, vocalization disabled. Kellen wanted to scream, but the worst was the lab further in, where they kept the ones who failed the genetic obedience filter. Rows of small white bags. Neatly tagged, Reyes put a bullet through the server. Elise ordered the rest of the team forward. Plant charges, full spread. But then Vex spoke through their comms. Motion detected, central chamber. Inside was a group of older children, 12 to 16, sitting silently, eyes blank, posture perfect. No guards, no emotion. Kellen stepped forward. "Do you know who you are?" No one spoke. Elise tried. "You're human. You're not machines. You're not pets. Still nothing." Until one girl, maybe 15, whispered, "We are. Correctable." Silva's voice cracked over comms. "They've overwritten instinct." Elise stepped forward slowly, kneeling. "Do you remember fear?" The girl blinked. Slowly. Then nodded. Kellen leaned in. "Then run. And when you hear us, follow the fire." The charges blew 20. Minutes later, Evalix went nova, wiped from existence, but the children, 36 of them, were already aboard Wraithcaller. Some still didn't speak, but one, a boy with an old scar across his scalp, walked into the war room and handed Kellen a card, burned into the plastic, Facility 19, Project Hush. They were making more. Elsewhere, Zadran Command scrambled. The overlords were no longer calm. Human broadcasts were being remixed into protest anthems on over 40 vassal worlds. Pet traders were being attacked in markets. Even non-human species were joining the revolt. A black market pirate clan started painting human slogans on their ships. Better prey than property. Earth bites back. In the Zadran Senate, one official demanded full planetary bombardment of any human settlement. Another whispered, "What if they're already there?" They were. On the ship, Reyes stared out the viewport. "They'll retaliate," Elise replied, without blinking. "They'll overreact," Kellen finished the thought, "and when they do, we make them bleed for every step." He turned to Vex. "Prep the next wave. Drop the signal into every blacknet on the edge systems. Tag it. Project. Hush. And the message?" Vex asked. Kellen didn't hesitate. "Tell them the pets are loose." This is the escalation, the moment when the galaxy learns that humans don't just rebel, they infect the system itself. Project Hush wasn't a rumor anymore. The file, the scarred boy handed Kellen held locations, shipment schedules, and one chilling line. Genetic compliance threshold achieved. Mass distribution begins next cycle. They weren't just making obedient humans, they were preparing to flood the galaxy with them, to turn every pet store, noble house, and medical facility into a silent conquest. Human faces without human minds. If humanity didn't stop it now, they'd lose the war without a shot. So they didn't wait. Wraithcaller jumped into Zadran border space unannounced. Silva rerouted the signal directly into pirate channels, fringe colonies, blacknet feeds. The message? A scream. Raw footage from Ivalex Station. Infants. Mind-wiped teens. Memory-killed rebels. And at the end, this is Project Hush. They are not just enslaving us, they are rewriting us. Within hours, dozens of neutral factions flipped. Even the Volari, a silicon-based race that hated all carbon life, released a rare statement. "This offends even our protocols." That was enough. The chain reaction began. Across the galaxy, former human pets turned on their masters. A Zadran aristocrat was strangled with his own leash by a woman named Mara, who'd been mute for 12 years. An old war vet, once kept as a curiosity, on a merchant freighter, stole the ship and rammed it into a patrol station. They weren't soldiers, but they remembered what it felt like to stand upright. Back on Wraithcaller, Kellen studied the new data from the boy. Project Hush wasn't a single lab. It was a network, distributed, encrypted, spread across 13 planetary systems and dozens of moons. Too many to destroy one by one. So Elise proposed something bolder. We don't hunt the branches. We poison the root. That root was Heliox Prime, a Zadran research nexus hidden inside a planetary core. It was where the compliance code was stored, the backups, the AI algorithms, the pattern templates for stripping memory from children. Destroy Heliox, and the whole system would crash. But there was a catch. It was guarded by Archons, not soldiers. These were AI-human hybrids. Failed experiments. From the earliest obedience projects, now weaponized. More machine than man. More rage than reason. Reyes looked at the footage and muttered, "So, we're fighting ghosts now." Kellen nodded grimly. "Then we kill them like ghosts, quiet and final." The insertion was brutal. Archons detected them 30 seconds after they breached orbit. The ship was ripped by EM mines. Systems flickered. Wraithcaller couldn't go in. So Kellen, Elise, Reyes, and a strike team of 9 dropped in naked. No comms, no AI, no rescue line, just grit, fire, and fury. They moved through molten corridors, dodging automated turrets and echoes of screaming test subjects embedded in the walls. Silva, guiding remotely, fed them one last piece of intel. Destroy core node Sigma-1 and the algorithm collapses. They made it to Sigma-1, but the Archons were waiting. It was chaos. They moved faster than any humanoid should. Their skin was alloy. Their voices echoed like digital static. One operative was torn in half before his gun finished charging. Reyes, dual-wielded plasma pistols, carving a path through bodies that bled blue fire. Elise took a blade through her shoulder and didn't flinch. Kellen rigged the core manually. 30 seconds! A massive Archon tackled him. It looked just like Aaron. Not similar. Exact. Down to the scar behind the left ear. "Comply," it said in a half-human voice. "No." Kellen growled. He pressed the detonator. The explosion rocked. The planet. Data pulses shattered across subspace. In labs across the galaxy, Project Hush pods froze, sputtered, and then died. Every clone, every signal, gone. Wraithcaller picked up the strike team 5 minutes later. Only 4 survived. Elise was bleeding, but alive. Reyes had lost 2 fingers. Kellen had cracked ribs and a 1,000-yard stare. But they were breathing. Galactic reactions poured in. Systems that had stayed silent rose. Colonies once loyal to the Zadran rebelled. Even the Zadran Senate splintered, half demanding peace, the other half screaming for extermination. But the tide was turning. And deep in the void, something else had seen, a cloaked ship, unknown design. Inside, a figure watched the broadcast, eyes glowing like dying stars. "Humans are unpredictable," it said. "Yes," another replied, "and beautifully dangerous." On board Wraithcaller, Kellen stood alone. He held the old card with Project Hush scratched out. He turned it over, wrote one word on the back. Never again. This is where the enemy begins to shatter, and the galaxy starts whispering a new word. Not pet, not prey, but predator. The collapse of Project Hush was the crack in the dam, but no one expected the flood. Zadran governors across 4 sectors went silent. Entire planetary hubs were overrun by slave revolts, sparked by hidden data chips with a single phrase: "You remember. You resist." Within 3 days, over a dozen trading fleets cut ties with the Zadran entirely, fearing what would happen if they didn't. Worse, some Zadran nobles tried to free their humans to avoid backlash. But it was too late. The leash had been severed. Now humanity wasn't asking for freedom. They were taking it. Inside the Wraithcaller, Elise Rook stood before a table of holodisplays, showing the chaos. We have momentum, and that scares them more than bullets. Kellen, his ribs still wrapped, stared at a message from Silva. A transmission, intercepted on a fringe channel. Zadran High Command is relocating. Reyes leaned in. Where? To Ascendancy. The word made Elise stiffen. That's not a place, she said. It's a ship. The Zadran's final ace. Ascendancy was legend. A generation vessel the size of a small moon, housing Overlord bloodlines, AI archivists, and experimental weapon systems locked away for centuries. A floating fortress, the plan was obvious. Retreat, regroup, rebuild the leash. Unless humanity burned it down first. The decision was made. Entire Maw mobilized, 10 ships, one goal, end the Overlords. Approaching Ascendancy was like flying into a god's eye. It rotated slowly above a dead gas giant, its hull covered in living armor that shimmered like oil on water. Reyes muttered, "Looks like a coffin." Kellen replied, "Let's bury something in it then." Infiltration wasn't possible, so they didn't infiltrate. They punched a hole through the side using a kinetic missile tipped with a singularity charge. The Maw ships surged forward, guns blazing, unloading teams of phantom operatives and AI-guided, drones into the breach. Inside was a labyrinth of horrors. Bioforges, mind-flensing chambers. Human brains connected to glowing cubes still functioning. They weren't just breeding pets, Elise whispered. They were building gods. Kellen's strike team made it to the Overlord chamber. It was a throne room, carved from black stone. Only one figure sat on the dais, a Zadran of immense size and age, Overlord Varnex, last of the true bloodline. He didn't rise. He just stared. "You've become what we feared," he said. "Good," Kellen stepped forward. "You were never afraid. You were amused." "At first," Varnex nodded. "But prey that learns is more dangerous than predators that don't. Then let's end the lesson." They fought. It wasn't clean. It wasn't fair. Varnex had weapons stitched into his skin, reflexes enhanced by centuries of neural warfare. He moved like gravity, slow but impossible to escape, but Elise was faster, Reyes was smarter, and Kellen was angrier. The final blow came from a plasma spike shoved into Varnex's core node. His last words, "Then I die, knowing the galaxy. We'll never forget you." "Good," Kellen replied, "and that's the point." The Wraithcaller detonated the engine core of Ascendancy from the inside. The explosion lit the sky for 10 hours. It was the end of the Zadran, of the leash, of the myth. In the weeks that followed, humanity wasn't celebrated. It was feared. Reborn, former, allies stared in awe. Former masters whispered in terror. Kellen didn't attend the ceremony. Neither did Elise. They didn't want medals. They wanted memory. Back on Earth, in a rebuilt settlement where the grass grew wild again, Reyes sat watching. Children play. No collars. No fear. Just life. Kellen joined her. "We're not pets anymore," he said. "No," Reyes smiled. "Now we're the ones they watch." But deep beyond the rim, in cold space untouched by maps, another species listened to the final Zadran signal. A broken, static-laced message. "Do not provoke the humans." A long pause. They remember. This is where the story becomes legend. Not just about one man, but an entire species that went from collars to command. Let's finish this the only way humans know how. Loud, relentless, unforgettable. The war was over, not with a treaty, not with surrender, but with silence. Zadron space no longer echoed with orders, broadcasts, or slave auctions. Only ashes, and in their place, whispers. Whispers of humans. Not as pets, but as something else, predators in the shadows, ghosts in the machine, the fire that never went out. The Terran Accord was formed in the weeks after the Ascendancy's destruction, a coalition of liberated species, rogue AI, ex-slaves, and free humans, united by one truth: never again. At its center sat the Wraithcaller, still scarred, still flying, still watching. Kellen Ward never returned to Earth. He stayed in the void, where the fires hadn't all gone out. Elise Rook became a myth. Some said she died, others swore she was building a second fleet. Reyes trained a new generation of Maw operatives not to kill, but to remember. Because that's what the Zadran underestimated most. Not humanity's weapons. Not its rage. Its memory. On the anniversary of the fall of Ascendancy, a message was broadcast across the galaxy. It wasn't flashy, just Kellen, sitting in a dark room, one hand wrapped around a data chip. He looked into the camera. You laughed at us. You paraded us in chains. You taught your children we were animals. A pause. And now, held up the chip. Now your children learn about us in history class. He leaned forward. You made us kneel. We made you extinct. So here's our message, galaxy-wide. He pressed the button, and the signal pulsed like thunder. We are not your pets. We are not your tools. We are the warning. In distant space, a merchant freighter from a peaceful world passed through an ancient wreck. The crew noticed strange markings on the debris. Old metal, burned symbols. One word, scorched into alloy. Remember. In the archives of the Valari High Matriarch, a new protocol was issued. Do not capture humans. Do not enslave humans. Do not study humans. Do not provoke them. In the ruins of Zadran space, flowers bloomed, earth plants, wild, untamed, and among them, children ran free. No chains, no collars, only stories. A little girl stopped and asked her mother, "Did we really used to be pets?" Her mother knelt, smiled, and answered, "We were." And then, one man fought back.